It takes like quadruple the time, but it creates triple the smugness. This episode is all about pesto. It has an herb, it has a cheese, it has a nut, it has some garlic, and then it has oil. It's one of the easiest sauces that you can make. It's elementary. I'm making a classic pesto with basil, pine nuts, Parmesan. I'm making a vegan pesto. It has raw cashews and nutritional yeast. And I'm making this incredibly flavorful tomato pesto made with sun-dried tomatoes, and it tastes like the black star of pizza. The thing that I love the most about pesto is that pesto takes even the most modest, mild foods and makes them amazing. I'm gonna start out by making the classic basil pesto. Really, you don't need a recipe for pesto, but you do need to know what components go into it. I'm gonna use this food processor. Pesto actually is traditionally made in a mortar and pestle. When I make a pesto, I always grind the nuts first. We're looking for just like a little sort of loose breadcrumb texture here. So I pulse these up a little bit, and next what I like to do is start with a minced garlic. The food processor can sometimes miss some of the pieces, so I'm just gonna grate this in. So next I'm gonna put in the basil. This is gonna end up about 2 cups of basil. Now I'm gonna pulse it again. So my method for pulsing is I'm looking at it and I'm seeing that there's like no giant leaves, and I'm trying to make sure that the food falls back down towards the bottom blade between pulses. When I'm looking at it, I start seeing the herbs like climbing around the side. I wanna show you this. This is very, very thick. I haven't added the cheese yet because the cheese will like become a little bit gummy, but this is a pretty thick paste right now. Right now it's like sharp with garlic. I can taste the pine nuts, and the basil is adding like a sharp, bright freshness. I'm gonna add the cheese, and I'm gonna pulse this up to get it to combine. I'm gonna add some salt. When you put oil in a mechanical device that has blades, the blades mess up the molecules in the oil so that it becomes more bitter as you go along. I like to just gently put it in, mix it until it just comes together, and then stop. It's very, very thick, and it's still pretty piecey. And so I am going to not add more oil. I'm gonna add the secret ingredient, a little bit of water, loosens it up. I wanna go over why I added these in a separate order and not just like clump them up all at the same time, which you can do. You're not gonna end up with a pesto that you hate if you do that, but if you do this, you're gonna end up with a pesto that has even size pieces and a paste that's smoother, because the friction that happens with the nuts, it allows you to grind them to a similar consistency so that little pieces of them aren't gonna escape into the leaves. So this just makes a texture that is smoother overall. And the beauty of pesto is that it's gonna bring whatever I put it on together. I could fry some eggs in it. I might mix it into scrambled eggs. I could put it on some pasta. I could put it on potatoes. It's very good on green beans. I love it on shrimp. It's bright, it's fresh, it's garlicky, it's cheesy, it's umami. It's our classic basil pesto. Okay, so we talked about doing this in a mortar and pestle, and I just wanna show you. This is a pretty big mortar and pestle. It's made of stone. I'm gonna start with the garlic. Nuts are next. Nuts are second because they're slippery. I'm using pine nuts. You can obviously use walnuts, cashews, pecans, peanuts, pepitas, sunflower seeds, pistachios. I'm just gonna do that thing from Best in Show where they just like, he just names the nuts. Okay, this is basically like not peanut butter-y, and it's time for the leaves. Okay, so I wanna report that my arm is burning. I think it takes quadruple the time, but it creates triple the smugness. Both the garlic and the nuts have created like a almost buttery paste. It's different in that, the pieces, the fibers in the leaves are much longer than they were in the food processor, which is chopping them. So I'm gonna add the cheese now. Can you hear this?
Can you imitate that sound as well?
It's olive oil time. Most recipes that use very few ingredients the ingredients really matter. You can taste every single piece of this. The cheese matters, the freshness of the basil matters, the quality of the olive oil matters. But I don't know if you can see this. It just, the whole entire texture of this is much softer. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I can literally taste the difference in the olive oil. It has the exact same amount of ingredients, and it just has like a rounder, more delicate, sweet flavor. I'm actually really surprised. Whether you make this in a food processor or in a mortar and pestle, it's a really like bright, punchy, flavorful, like deeply intense pesto that you can use to base all of your other pestos on. Okay, so now I'm gonna make some vegan pesto. I love this pesto because it is a clean tasting pesto that has a little bit of a lighter flavor. I use a little bit of lemon to brighten things up. The spinach has a less intense flavor than the basil all by itself. Also, these are raw cashews and they create a really like nice tacky texture that the pine nuts don't do. All the pestos start in the same way, by grinding the nuts. And you'll notice that cashew dust is a lot drier than pine nut dust. Following the same formula as last time, I've already minced the garlic. So this time I'm using a combination of spinach and basil. And the reason why is because I want you to know that you can use a variety of different greens. It's still really dry. And so now I'm going to add a little bit of lemon juice. Now, nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast it's related to, but it's not the same strain as baking yeast. It's super good on popcorn, but it creates this very like funky, cheesy flavor. Okay, I'm gonna just pour this in. So I'm gonna be gentle with this again because I don't wanna over process the oil. I really am just mixing it in. You don't need to make like a crazy emulsion. I want it to be loose enough to sort of fall back down once it stops processing. It's not fully incorporated and that's fine. It's very thick. This is really sweet and what it needs is salt. And I'm gonna loosen it up again with a little water. This is way smoother than the classic basil one. Part of the reason for that is the nuts are pulverized very, very finely. And the spinach, which has a lot more liquid in it, has just lent its sort of body to the sauce. Okay, so this is our vegan pesto. It is more delicate, it is smoother, and it's just as good as the classic pesto. Same process, start with grinding the nuts, add the garlic, layer in the greens, flavors, oil, taste, enjoy. So now I'm gonna be making sun-dried tomato pesto. It's different because the body of it is sun-dried tomatoes and it's red. It tastes like kind of condensed pizza flavor. I'm gonna use walnuts. Boop, 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 boop. All right, this is also a really nice powdery dust. 2 cloves of garlic, I'm gonna grate it into here. I have to say, I'm a big fan of shortcuts of some kind, but I do not really like the flavor of pre-ground garlic. I don't like it. This is worth the extra effort to just start with fresh garlic. Now I'm just gonna pop these in. So I'm gonna add the cheese in here. I'm gonna add a little bit of basil, some pepper flakes, give it a little kick. That's optional. I'll set up. I'm gonna start adding the oil. The oil's the same. You don't want it to become bitter. So you want to kind of process it minimally. I think I do want a little bit of fragrant lemon zest in here. I'm gonna add a little bit of water to this because I want to loosen it up. Okay, could you just dump everything in here at once and pulse it? Yes. I'm adding the layers because I'm trying to control the texture, I'm trying to control the flavor. If you want to learn how to improvise, you should just be paying attention as you go along so that you can make changes later on. Okay, so obviously the difference between this and the other 2 pestos is that the foundation of this is a fruit. It's not a leaf. So it has a lot more sweetness, it has a lot more body, It's a tomato, it's red. It is, you know, a little something different. You don't always want to have that minty, fresh flavor of basil. Sometimes you want to have like a more sweet, caramely, sultry tomato flavor. Sultry? Is a tomato sultry? Is a tomato sultry? Let us know in the comments below. Is a tomato sultry? So I made 3 kinds of pesto. I made this classic basil, pine nut, Parmesan pesto. I cooked some eggs in it because TikTok told me to, and it is amazing because it creates this crunchy crust. It's fragrant and it's cheesy, and it created its own crust because the cheese fried, and then the oil from the pesto came out and fried the eggs. This vegan pesto, dairy-free. It tastes super fresh, very, very clean. A little bit sweet. It's that good. I had to have a moment, but really it's like, it's such a clean, beautiful flavor, and the little tiny bit of lemon in it just like makes the whole thing pop. This sun-dried tomato one, compressed, sweet, savory, tomatoey flavor. Tomatoes have so much umami punch in them. I just want to tell you that you actually just don't even need pizza anymore. I'm really serious. What is the most amazing, surprising, weird thing that you ever put pesto on? Tell me about it in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the Spruce Eats. Scrambled eggs, broiled chicken, flounder, shrimp scampi, toast, sandwich spreads, dips, artichokes, green beans, asparagus, potatoes. That's it, really.